Hey music teachers, let's talk about something nobody wants to talk about, and that is grades in your elementary music class. Because yeah, most of us give grades, right? Right. If we haven't met yet, hi, my name is Becca. I'm an elementary music teacher, and I like to share anything that is working in my classroom here online with you and give you any of the tips, any of the lessons, try to make it as tactile as possible, just help you live your best music teacher life. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. And without further ado, let's talk grading. So I have a couple of points I just want to mention. And then we're going to get into super specific things that you can do as grades to put in. So if you're struggling with what to actually do to grade kids, we're going to talk about that at the end. And lots of them are super easy that you can do and are no big deal. Okay. So my first point that I want to talk about is you need to give grades in music. And not just you need to give grades, you need to give real grades. Now, I don't know how it is at your school. At my school, I put in a number, and my number converts to a letter. Not A, B, C, D, E, but we have S for satisfactory, E for excellence, and I don't remember what those were, and U for unsatisfactory. So I put in, an 80 and it pops out the letter S, and that's what the parents see on their report cards. We use PowerSchool, which I assume most people probably do, or something similar. And so the parents are able to log in and see all the grades regardless, which means they can also see the number, but they only see the letter on the report cards. So my grades are not done the same way as a math teacher's grades are, but even though they are not done the same way, it is still important that you grade your students and that you grade them realistically. We are not here to give everybody E's. We are not here to give everybody S's. You need to make sure you are actually giving a grade for what the student is able to do, which also means every grade is not a participation grade. Okay, I know. I'm ruffling feathers and I'm making more work for you, but it's really important that you actually do this. First of all, because on your part, you need to track the progress of students and communicate that with parents. So if I have a student who cannot keep a steady beat, they should not have 100 in music because they can't keep a steady beat. Okay? That's just how it is. And then if they, can't keep a steady beat in the first quarter and in the second quarter they figure it out, then now their grade should go up because your grade is partially progress monitoring of seeing how the students are doing and what you need to do. So if you are not taking down any grades, even not even talking about entering them, if you are not taking down grades, doing assessments, doing activities where you are figuring out what the kids know, you have no idea what to teach. Because you don't know if the kids know the concept or not, okay? Right now, my first graders are about to learn rhythm. So I had to make sure they knew how to keep a steady beat. And we didn't move on from steady beat until almost all of them could do it. And yeah, almost all, because I teach a lot of kids. And then we started talking about rhythm. And so right now we're reading rhythm with iconic notation. We haven't looked at a ta, we haven't looked at a TT, but we're doing that. And I'm walking around assessing them daily to see who is understanding it, because I can't show them what a quarter and eighth notes are if they don't even understand beat. Okay. So you have to track progress, because otherwise you're just flying blind and you don't know if they understand something. You don't know if it's time to move on, if it's too easy, if they need something harder, if they need something easier. You don't know what to do if you're not assessing your students. Okay. Now, as far as putting the grades in the grade book, you don't want to just, everybody gets an E, everybody gets an S, because music education matters. And it is a class. Is it I'm not going to get into talking about, what subjects are more important. But if you are a music teacher, that's because you believe music is important and you need to be treated the same way as everybody else, which means that you need to show that your class matters. So if you're just in there giving out random grades, you're not valuing your profession, which makes the parents not value your profession, makes your admin not value the profession, which not just hurts you, but it also hurts all of us, because now all of us are in the same boat of no one thinks this is important. So if you take it seriously, then other people will take it seriously. And I've seen this with different like fine arts and specials teachers and how they talk about grades and how they take grades. The ones who are serious about their grades are the ones who get better results and the ones who get more respect because they're actually doing their job. Okay? It's your job. You need to do it. So first of all, you need to give grades. Secondly, let's talk about kind of like how often, because you don't necessarily have to grade something every single day, but you do need to get grades in. So this is going to depend a lot on how many students you have, how often you see them, and those kind of things. I see my students right now on a 6-day rotation. So I try to get a grade, I would say like 2 out of 3 classes. So like kindergarten, last time I took a grade. This time I didn't take a grade. Next week I will take a grade, and I'll just make sure that I, have those in there. I like to have 3 to 5 grades per marking period, but I only see my students like 7 times in a marking period. And especially be aware of like the fourth quarter is going to have testing. So that schedule is all going to be wonky and things like that can throw things in. That's a wrench. So 3 to 5 is kind of my happy place. Do check with your admin and see what you're supposed to have, because they might have requirements that you are supposed to do. But in general, you want to have a couple of grades that are showing, your students' progress over time. So I would say I try every, 2 out of 3. I would love to have something to grade every single time, but that's not super realistic. So as much as I possibly can, essentially. A lot of my grades are formative grades, which are just like quick observations, which we'll talk about first. Some of them are more like official like tests and stuff like that, but we're going to talk about all of that right now. But it just kind of depends on how often you see your students and stuff like that. I used to see my students for a week at a time. So I would see like Miss Roberts' class this week, and then next week I'd have a different 2nd grade class. And so what would happen is I would see, we were on a 5-week rotation. So I would see 4 of my classes twice, and 1 class I would only see once in a quarter. So for that, I tried to get at least 2 or 3 grades per week, to really make sure that I was covering, especially that last group, seeing if I could maybe like get an extra thing, because I'm only going to see them for 1 week out of the marking period. So there's just a couple of different examples if you're looking for like something super specific. As far as like what to do though, let's talk about how to get your grades. Okay, so these are going to be split into formative and summative. Formative assessments are, if you remember, just like quick observations. They're not a big deal. They're not like end of the year tests. It's just a quick, do you understand what we're doing? For most of these, what I'm going to do is I will use my checklist. I'll see if I can put up a thing. You can either do a roster, or what I do is actually my seating chart. And on my seating chart, I have all these little boxes. And let me see if I have these available for you. So what I do is on my seating chart, I have little boxes, and each student has, I think I have like 8 boxes, and then I have boxes at the top, and at the top I write the date and I write the activity, and then I just check the students off as I'm going. These seating charts are included in my back to school boot camp, so if you're a part of that, you can definitely get them there. If you're not, I'll leave the link down below. I know it's not back to school time as when I'm filming this, but it might be when you're watching it. So it goes through like all the things to like organize and set up your classroom. We talk about classroom management, like all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so what I do, typically I will do a check mark if we got it 100% correct. I'll do a line if they're like kind of there, and I'll do an X if they're like do not understand the concept. And then sometimes I'll put 2 if they're like kind of in between, if they're like maybe a little bit getting it, then they might have like an X and a line. But I'll kind of adjust from there depending on the activity. I'll also sometimes, if I might do like tally marks instead, if it's like, okay, we have 5 questions, how many did you get right, or something like that. So that's kind of how I like actually do it. A couple of things that I personally observe as formative assessments. First one would be just observing while students are playing or singing. So for example, 2nd grade this morning is doing a rhythm play along. They're, playing tas and titis along with the video. And I'm just looking at each student as we go through. Yes, you did that right. Yes, you did that right. Yes, you did that right. Oh, that wasn't right. It's just a really quick observation, are they doing it right? If you're doing singing, you can walk around while they're singing and that'll work too. I love doing this also in like small groups. I'll have the kids play a game, like Kaboom is my favorite game. Shark Attack, any of those will work. But for Kaboom, which I will link down below, basically you get like a cup and we put a bunch of cards in there. You can do it for rhythm, melody, instrument, orchestra, whatever. But let's just assume for rhythm, because rhythm's kind of the easiest to like talk about. So rhythm, Kaboom. We're pulling out a rhythm. You read it right, you get to keep it. You get it wrong, you put it back in the bucket. If you get a Kaboom, you put them all back. Okay? That's the essence of this. I just have to stand there for one round while all 3 of these kids read a rhythm. Check, you did that right. Check, you did that right. Check, you did that right. Go to the next group. Check, check, check. Really, really simple. And they are now playing a game while I'm getting an assessment. Okay, so like it doesn't have to be complicated. It does not have to be complicated. Yesterday, kindergarten, we're keeping the steady beat. I'm just checking off, yes, you got the steady beat. Yes, you got the steady beat. Or if like almost everybody does have it, sometimes I'll just do, if someone doesn't have it, I'll put an X and I'll do like check if yes on my like little notes or something like that. So that's really simple, number 1. Number 2, using manipulatives or whiteboards. So for this, like today, first grade was working on, we did a snowy day lesson. I'm going to link all these down below in the description, by the way. We did a lesson with the snowy day, and in the snowy day, Peter he walks and he drags his feet through the snow. So in our lesson, we're doing iconic notation because we haven't started with actual rhythms yet. So they got cards that had 2 footsteps, which they were supposed to call walk, walk. And they got cards with like a line that was called drag. And they had to get in groups. They made 4-beat patterns with these, things, and they would have to say and clap, walk, walk, drag, walk, walk, drag. All I have to do is walk around, listen to this group of 3 kids do it, and if they do it correct, I can check them all off. Super easy. 5th grade has been using whiteboards to do dictation. So I read a rhythm and they write it down, and then they just hold it up like this, and I just check off who has it correct or doesn't have it correct. Super, super simple. I can really easily see them. You don't have, for something like that, you don't have to get every student every time. You can get, 5 students this time, 5 students next time, something like that, depending on how much time you have and how many students you have. But really, really easy. You can, do dictation where you're reading a rhythm and they're using like rhythm cards to make the rhythm. Any of those would work, and they're really, really easy. Like, it's not hard. It's not hard. I know you're like, oh my gosh, I have so many kids. How am I supposed to assess every single one of them? It's not hard. Stop making it hard. Like I've talked to a lot of people in person recently who are like not assessing their students, not doing what they're supposed to, and it just really frustrates me. And especially because they're trying to like make excuses for it, and I'm like, it's really not that big of a deal. Okay, it's like, stop making a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's really quick. Next up, true or false, or 1 or 2. For this one, I will put something on the board, and students either show me yes or no for a true or false question. Or I might have something with like options, like a multiple choice. Show me a 1, show me a 2. I love using for solfege. I'll link some down below. But for solfege, I have a snowball fight free one. I'll link that one down below. For solfege, I'll do activities where on the board, I'll have like, okay, here's our pattern. Here's 2 sets of notes on the staff. Which one matches the pattern? And they just show me 1 or 2, or if I have 3, then, 3. And then, I just check off, who has the correct ones. It's so easy. We did this with meter with my older kids, where I had a time signature. I had a couple of rhythms, and they just had to show me, yes, it matches the time signature, or no, it doesn't match the time signature. It's so easy. It doesn't have to be hard. They're really quick. They're not hard. It just takes a little bit of planning on your part, but it doesn't have to be hard. You could even do like put a rhythm or a melody up on the board, read a rhythm or the melody, and just, is that what's on the board or is it not what's on the board? Like, it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be hard. Okay. And lastly, you could also use things like Kahoot or Nearpod, Flipgrid. Grid, I want to say, is the video one where kids can upload a video. But Kahoot is a good one. If you have devices, they can just go through, and as long as they use their actual name, you can see what grade every student got on them. If you're doing groups, you could even give a group grade, like that's fine. Or you can do like a Nearpod. Those are like technology things if that's kind of more your style, but it's totally doable. It's totally doable. Okay. So those are all like formative, super quick, walking around, just checking on people, marking on your, seating chart. You can also do summative assessments. This is what I do at the end of a unit. So, okay, we've been working on 16th notes. Here's our 16th note test. Yes, just like they do in class. There's a reason they do those in class, is because that's how you know if the kids know what they're talking about. And I know there's like this whole culture of like, listen, I hate standardized testing. I hate how much the kids are tested. You don't have to give them a whole huge long thing. Usually I'll give them like 5 questions, 3 questions. You can figure the kids out really quickly and see who understands things really quickly, but have something more formal that you have on paper. This will also help if parents have questions about, hey, how's my student doing? You can be like, oh, well, look, they didn't get anything right, so not very well. But you can have written assessments. I have rhythm assessments for quarter and eighth notes, quarter rest, half note, and 16th notes that I will link down below. They're like printable. All you need to do is like print and go. There's a ton of things in there. You can also use them more as like worksheets or sub plans. They don't have to be like assessments, but those are things you can use. And I usually do these at the end of a unit. So like we're practicing quarter and eighth notes right now in 2nd grade. We'll do a quick test before we move on to rest. Something like that. The second thing you can do for a summative assessment is you can have students do projects. Projects take up a lot of time, so do be aware of that. It will take a couple of classes, but you can have the students, compose with something. So for example, I had the students do 4th grade. They were working on ecosystems in class. So we came up with different animals that were in the ecosystem. We figured out the rhythm of each of those animals. They had to create a 16 beat or a 4 measure piece in 4/4 time that had the correct rhythms, and then they had to play it. So I'm assessing, are you writing rhythms correctly and putting the correct number of beats in your thing? And then I also assess them on their playing. So that's something that you could do, something along those lines. Having them compose is usually where I go with projects, but I mean, you can do whatever you want, but compose and perform is kind of like what I like to do. Do be aware that performing is going to take a whole class period. So just be aware this is time consuming. It'll take a while. It's not going to be something super quick, but you can really see how the students go. And I like those because even though they're summative assessments, I get to work with the kids. So I'll do kind of like steps, and you bring me your paper at this step and we work through things, and if something's wrong they can fix it, which I do love. And lastly, you might have done this in band or even in choir, you can do playing tests. If you're working on something super specific, we see this the most in elementary music with recorder. You can do playing tests. You can have the kids, play the songs that they're working on and do it as a test. Okay, we've done this, when they're doing their projects. I've also had the kids learn songs on xylophones or playing rhythms on the drums, but they can do that, and that can be an assessment as well. So there's a lot of different options for things you can do. Don't overthink it. Don't stress about it. Just look at what you're already doing in class and being like, how could I take a grade from this? That's kind of the way I approach it. Like, okay, we're already keeping the steady beat on our bodies. Let me just jot down real quick who's doing it correctly. We're already singing this song. Let me jot down who's matching pitch. Like, it doesn't have to be a big deal, but you do need to keep track of how your students are doing so that you can accurately plan your lessons and so that parents know how the students are actually doing. Now, I don't know what your grades look like, so you might just have the option of like SE and U, that kind of stuff, but do make sure that you know where the students fall on the grading scale. And if you have number grades, even if they're like mine where I put in, an 83 and it pops out as an S for satisfactory, put in the number grades because it looks more realistic. So when parents are looking at it, they're like, oh, they got an 83, and not like, oh, they got an 85 5 times, because it just looks a little bit weird. Okay, so be as accurate as possible, but don't overthink it. But use that data, like assess the kids and then use that data for how you're going to help students who need more help or how you're going to move on with your life. Okay? I know I just dropped a lot of stuff on you. I'm gonna leave links to lots and lots of stuff down below in the comments. And if there's something that the description. And if there's something you want to see specifically, like if you want examples of like games we can use to assess or activities where we can assess, let me know those down below in the comments and I would be happy to make some more videos on this subject because I'm a nerd and I like talking about this stuff. So there we are. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.